Afternoon, everyone. My name is Armani Gordon, and I would like to acknowledge Mrs. Eslana Robeson, born 1895 and died 1965, who is the subject of Barbara Ramsey's book, Eslana, The Large and Unconventional Life of Mrs. Paul Robeson, published by Yale University Press in 2013. Eslana Robeson, Paul Robeson's business manager and wife of over 40 years, was an accomplished woman. According to Ramsey, Essie was an anthropologist, journalist, advocate for women's rights, an outspoken anti-colonial and anti-racist activist, and internationally sought-after speaker. She was the first Black female chemist to work at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. She attended the University of Illinois and graduated from Columbia at the London School of Economics and wrote 3 books, including one with Pearl Buck, a Nobel Prize winner. Mrs. Robeson visited almost 40 countries. While in Uganda, she met a Tuskegee Institute graduate whose wife was from Boston, and in 1941, Mrs. Robeson's tour of the U.S. South took her to our very own Tuskegee. In 1965, several days before turning 70, she lost her battle to cancer, leaving Paul Jr., his family, to mourn her passing. And that is her book. Bye.
Good afternoon, everyone. Technology is supposed to be like easy, but when you need it, it don't be wrong. Okay, I had the opportunity of learning about Paul Robeson. I'll be playing a clip for you guys in a minute, but in our class this year, we're touching on literature and democracy and how it affected Chile and connected to the U.S. So Pablo Neruda, who is probably the most prolific poet in Chilean history, human rights activist, he was a person who was like for the commoner, for the people who were in a struggle. He had a negative connotation with him due to the fact that he was a part of the Communist Party. However, I feel like that's what propelled him to have an empathy for people who were struggling. He looked at Paul Robeson as a great man, which he was, and a lot of them had connections. Paul Robeson was said to be a part of the Communist Party. He wasn't. He took trips to the USSR, but I really just want you guys to, if you guys have never heard of Paul Robeson, if you guys have ever heard the song Old Man River, the guy with the deep voice, that's him. Great man. His voice is impeccable. So let me just go ahead. This is an interview, one of the rarest interviews. I don't know if he has any more, but it was on KPF when he was in Oakland, and the lady was just asking him basically like, what drives you in essence? So
was your commitment to the political scene then largely as a result of your feeling about your own people or our own people, let's put it?
Yeah.
Or did it have other overtones of political conviction?
First it starts as an American Negro interested in my own people. The other great change is very constant in my mind. I was in the Welsh Valley, and the Welsh people sing very much like we do in the Negro people.
Yes, I've heard
many of our songs, beautiful songs. And I was one of the few outsiders who has sung at a Welsh Eisteddfod, their national festival, which has gone on since the time of the Druids. And I went down in the mines with the workers, and they explained to me that, Paul, you may be successful here in England, but your people suffer like ours. We are poor people, and you belong to us. You don't belong to the bigwigs here in this country. And so I today feel as much at home in the Welsh Valley as I would in my own Negro section, any city in the United States. And I just did a broadcast by transatlantic cable to the Welsh Valley a few weeks ago. And here was the first understanding that the struggle of the Negro people, or of any people, cannot be by itself. That is the human struggle. And so I was attracted then met many members of the Labour Party, and my politics embraced also the common struggle of all oppressed peoples including especially the working masses, specifically the laboring people of all the world. And that defines my philosophy. It's a joining one of we are a working people, a laboring people, the Negro people. There's a unity between our struggle and those of white workers in the South. I've had white workers shake my hand and say, Paul, we're fighting for the same thing. And so this defines my attitude toward socialism and toward many other things in the world. I do.
I'm not sure if you guys like grasped all of that. That was a lot for me to take in just within that little bit, because it's like, as people in America, we're always like in cliques, and we separate ourselves just off of the rip, but you don't know what struggle people come through. So, I mean, in order to, I feel, move forward as a people, you have to understand that the person who's Mexican and has a struggle, even though it's not the same as you, it's a struggle. And, there's something that can be connected, and you guys can definitely move forward in that. So I'm just going to read some excerpts that about Paul Robeson in the Ode to Paul Robeson that Pablo Neruda wrote. And it says, "Before, he did not exist, yet his voice was there, waiting. Light parted from the shadow, day from night, land from the primal waters, and Paul Robeson's voice separated from silence. Until your voice lifted everything and everyone, their blood to the daylight. And earth and sky, fire and shadow and water arose with your song. They marched into ovens with the number written in their head. Hairless men, women, old, young, all rounded up. In Poland, in Ukraine, in Amsterdam, in Prague. The cities grieved once again. Silence was great, harsh, like a tombstone on a living heart, like a dead hand on a child's voice. Then you, Paul Robeson, sang. Once again, the powerful voice over fire was heard on earth. The solemn, slow, harsh, pure voice of the earth, reminding us we were still men, that we still share sorrow and hope. You do not sing only for blacks, for poor blacks, but for poor whites, for poor Indians, for all people. Sing for us, who live by fishing, who hammer nails with old hammers, who spin cruel threads of silk, who pound the pulp for paper, who print. Sing for all of those, barely able to close their eyes in jail, awakened at midnight, barely human between tortures.